share the space. Hello, chaps. Burge, Jacob, how are you guys doing? Obviously, no Simon today. I've just before we start anything and we do anything here, I do need to wish Simon a happy birthday. Is he in Switzerland, Burge? Have I got that right? He's on international duty.
You're right. Switzerland or Austria or I don't know, somewhere there.
He has told us 5 times, but in his place we've got Jacob from Chimpers, which this is going to be a fantastic one. We're going to talk about obviously Bitcoin, NFTs, cryptocurrency, some of the stuff that's happening in the TokenWorks ecosystem. But firstly, Jacob, welcome, my friend. Good to have you back on. I think the last time we did this, it was on another platform which I can't name because it reduces the reach on here. So no naming other platforms unless it's X. But it was good to catch up with you. How have you been, bud? What's been happening?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I can't even remember. It feels like a long time ago since the interview. And yeah, you know, I watch you guys. Obviously, hope I can do Simon justice, and I'll wish him a happy birthday. Actually, I didn't know that's why he wasn't here today, but love what you guys do. And I said it at the meetup in London. Like, you guys always chop it up and get some really cool clips and great discussion. So.
Obviously, yeah. Burge arranged that meetup, which was brilliant. But I had a bit of an awkward moment with you because that was the first time I'd seen you without your beanie hat on. All the other times, I've seen you, mate. Burge. I called him Oliver, and he went, "No, it's Jacob." I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure Jacob was coming," but like, and as absolutely ludicrous as this sounds, obviously you do look like your identical twin brother. But your hair's exactly the same as well with the middle curtains. And I was like, shit, that's Oliver. That's not Jacob. But it's the first time I'd seen you without a beanie hat on, which was pretty cool. But it was good to catch up with you in person, bud.
Definitely. No, it was funny because when I came up, like, I assumed that, you know, you might not necessarily remember the face. But definitely when I spoke to you and said hi, I had a feeling that you had no idea. Like, it was complete confusion.
Do you know with these live streams, one thing that fucking surprises me, and it surprises a lot of people with Burge actually, is I can't believe how tall you are, Jacob.
That's a compliment, to be fair. Because
but when I see you on the lives, I think, oh, he's probably quite a short guy. I don't know whether I'm measuring myself up to you or something like that. But Burge, I mean, he's perfect. He's perfect for the meetups because he's about 19 feet tall. You just like,
I've had the fair share of comments where people come up to me and they're like, "What? I never imagined you this tall." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, to be fair, that makes sense. Like, I'm assuming people just in their head put you at like an average height, and then they find out that like you're 6'3", and you're like, yeah, it's crazy."
Yeah, no, you're a giant, Burge, for sure. Like, that's so true.
He's a totem pole.
Yeah, I'm not that tall, you know.
Just to say a massive thanks to Amit, who's just shared the space out. Guys, for the 17 of you that are in here, just do me a massive favor. Please share the space out. I will give a little head nod while I'm on here. Amit wrote a very good Medium post, which I implore all of you to have a read. I've given him a follow on there as well, so I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that. Guys, we've got a really good one. Obviously, no Simon today. It's his birthday. He's on international duty. He's doing something. I think it's Switzerland. We need to check on his page, Burge.
I think it is.
Obviously, when it covers stuff with the market, last episode we kind of dug a bit into the war and stuff. I know it's quite divisive, but where it impacts asset prices, it is something that we do need to talk about, or we do need to cover. Without kind of leaning too much into the political stuff, we'll get into the crypto coins, we'll get into the NFT stuff and some of the stuff that's happening in the TokenWorks ecosystem.
It's Norway. Oslo, Norway.
Yeah, we got the continent right.
Yeah, we're
same continent, so it's all good. Guys, obviously, And Jacob, you probably might not look at pricing as much because you're in the trenches of running your own NFT project, which is amazing. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of us that have skin in the game. We know that a huge function of these NFTs going up is Ethereum going up in price. Then it leads you to looking at what's happening in the economy, why the prices are going down. Obviously, Burge, you did a brilliant review on the Strait of Hormuz and the fact that the fucking oil prices were being squeezed and all this sort of stuff. But we've had a bit of a liquidity pump, and it kind of feels like something's a little bit different. Is there anything that you're seeing, Burge, at the moment that you're thinking, actually, this could be where we kind of turn a corner and the bottom's in, or do you have any other views on that?
I mean, I think I had no. We had like a lot of in the first half, in the first bit of the year, the first couple of months, we had this kind of instability, this kind of uncertainty. Initially, it looked positive like the first couple of weeks, and then we had this kind of crash that we've seen over in crypto in general, a little bit of a stock market crash as well. And then, but it never shook my confidence that I thought like eventually in 2026 we would have this kind of rally across all that kind of assets. But mainly talking about crypto and NFTs. And then obviously the war happened, and that's obviously put a lot of uncertainty and instability into the markets.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're kind of right. I'm not. I mean, I'm looking at the timeline now, and I'm seeing some positive signs, which is I wasn't expecting to see positive signs so quick. But like for example, like I'm looking at a post right now, and oil made its way all the way up to it rallied all the way up to like $120 a barrel. It's now down to $80.
Yeah, that's Baron Trump, mate. He's trading around it. He sat at home on his laptop.
Probably.
He's like, Dad, what are you going to do? Who are you going to bomb next?
Jeez. Yeah.
So, Jacob, I just want to bring you into this. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to be the kind of macro guy because you're deep in the trenches with the stuff that you're doing in your NFT project. But you guys were the last hype mint of the cycle. Firstly, were you acutely aware of that? And are you acutely aware of how potential better financial conditions might impact your project? And do you legislate for any of that, or do you make provisions for that? Or is it just, hey, we're going to build what we're going to build and the economy is going to do what it's going to do?
Yeah, no, I think definitely the whole like geopolitical landscape is just like turmoil, and it's really hard to even predict or even like create things on the basis of like that sort of like macro level sort of thinking. For us, like you say, it is just a case of we're in our sort of world and the world that we're building, and it doesn't really affect the day to day, fortunately. But yeah, like all the way back in 2022, definitely was aware that was feeling like the sort of the top in terms of the amount of projects that we're releasing and just the sentiment as well. So yeah, I mean, for us, like all the way throughout the period of from when we launched to now, we've not really been distracted or not let the market sort of sentiment or conditions affect the way that we're approaching things. But yeah, I think in general right now it's just like you say, this just back and forth like ping pong of politics, and the small little news will have huge drastic changes in sentiment, so everyone's watching very, like I say, acutely, and obviously it's interesting to see it all play out.
No, I love that.
It's interesting because in like I would say in NFTs the sentiment for a long time has been pretty down, right? And even in crypto, like given what's played out over these first few months of 2026 and the last few months of 2025, like I feel like they're not the sentiment in crypto is pretty down as well. So it's almost like, I kind of view it as like we're almost at this stage of like, I don't know, like it feels like it's leveled out at the bottom, and almost anything, if we have a few like good pieces of news line up, it could send sentiment right back up, because there's always like in the back of people's heads, even when their sentiment isn't great, they're always hoping things will pick up, right? So they're looking out for, positive signs. So if we can have like, the clarity bill get passed, and that allow for more, innovation to happen in the sector, more freedom from whether it be like crypto exchanges, platforms, or whether it be NFT projects as well, whether it allows them to do more. Like if we can have a few like, and then maybe some macroeconomic stuff as well, a few positive signals kind of back to back to back, I feel like the market could just pick way back up again, especially crypto. I think NFTs it's a tougher one, right? Like NFTs almost needs crypto to lead the charge, and then it needs to kind of follow suit.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Burge. Guys, just for the 38 of you that are listening to this, please do me a massive favor. Please share the stream. Jacob, if you could share it to your audience as well, that'd be great, mate. I'd really appreciate that. just
definitely shared.
Just while we're pillaging your attention, mate, I'd really appreciate that. I mean, Burge, my view on it, and Jacob, my view on it is we're in a real kind of sweet spot. There's a lot of these macro experts talking about it being the Goldilocks zone, because there's all these indicators to show that financial conditions are improving. And things are getting better. However, there's this short-term lull in the economy, which is something that we kind of need to work through. I know you got something to share there, which I'll do in a second. But have you seen any of the stuff? I know Kevin Walsh, who is the new Fed chair, or he's going to be announced as the new Fed chair in May. Have either of you, or Burge, have you seen some of the stuff that's been announced about him and some of the things that people are talking about?
Only that, like, as you said, people kind of, I think, immediately reacted to the news and thinking that he wouldn't cut rates. But clearly, like, the reason why Powell was replaced and the reason why Walsh was picked, like, it seems pretty clear. Like, the way Trump runs the government is he puts people who will do his bidding, kind of thing, in charge. So I don't know why the market reacted like completely opposite, as if Walsh was basically going to go into that position and go, screw you, Trump. I'm going to keep doing what Powell's doing and not listen to you. Like, I do think Powell will probably cut rates, and that will be a good thing for, risk assets. And I think you'll see like that will benefit the markets.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people are saying that he's going to keep rates higher. Obviously, Jacob, the significance of the rates being higher is obviously they don't roll the debts, and everyone, I guess, in crypto is waiting for the US to roll their national debt, which is around about it's 38 trillion, but I think this year there's about 9.1 trillion that becomes due. This is going to significantly impact Ethereum and obviously NFTs. My view, actually, if you read a bit about Kevin Walsh, he's married to the granddaughter of Estee Lauder, and the father is best friends with Donald Trump. So this is a fucking family affair, mate. This guy's going to drop interest rates, and he's going to send these things to Valhalla. The reason why, and I just want to circle back to you, Jacob, the reason why it's significant is because I think we're at a stage in the market at the moment where there aren't enough NFT projects. There aren't, and this happened in 2021. You might have seen, I know you guys launched in 2022, but you might have seen it a little bit in 2021, where there was huge demand for expressive assets because a whole bunch of people were up in crypto terms. So they wanted to rotate into expressive assets, but there weren't enough projects, which is why every single project that people got into basically 10x'd. Can you foresee that type of thing happening again in NFTs, or do you think those days are just dead and gone?
I think it's a mix. It's like whenever a new project launches, there's obviously a surge of excitement, and amongst the actual participants of the space right now, that sort of leads the news. And as I was saying to Burge earlier, like there's been quite a few like great examples of that recently, and it's great because the builders who've been building and participating in the space for the last few years, You know, Normies are doing incredibly well. Frankie's Frogs collection as well, and yeah, they obviously, the space needs those, but it needs, you know, multiple of those. But as you say, like, what everybody tends to hark back to is the legacy projects, and that's, you know, primarily because that in the space, like, everybody is still attached to the community, like the reputation, like what's been built, and especially if they're still around and still here, like there's a reason for that. So there's obviously a core number of projects that are still here building, and it's hard to see, like, you know, anybody looking outside of those. But of course, it all is highly dependent on, you know, how committed amongst those teams, those projects are the teams, and the way that they align with the holders and the community. That's where, you know, the active participants of today are, you know, looking at, you know. And I think the scoreboard has sort of shifted in terms of like what was classified a blue chip previously versus now, and it's a lot more fluid. So it really is just a case of like, who is tangibly building community the best, and who is, you know, got the best sort of blueprint ahead of them. So yeah, but obviously everyone has
in your opinion, what is the point of difference, do you think, between the NFT projects that are going to outperform? Because there is a view that there will be very good NFT projects that don't make it because of the success rate of the space. But what do you think the outperformance is? Because I mean, from my interactions with you, you fucking hustle your face off. Like every time, I don't think you're not on your phone, mate. You must have like a contact lens on with X, because every time I message you back, it could be 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, it's very accessible, of course. Like, this is where I spend, you know, every hour of the day, and oh God, I'd hate to think about, like, you know, the amount of time, like, since 2021, like, to be honest, it'd be a crazy statistic to understand, like, how you know, much screen time I've had on, just in general, just X and Discord and everything else. But yeah, I think that the biggest factor, like I say, is for a long time there's been like a disconnect. Like, obviously there has been brands and NFT projects that are building, you know, the brand, and obviously that creates demand. It's cool. People like to be involved in that and see the, you know, the bigger picture, and that obviously makes the IP more valuable. And obviously alongside that, there needs to be products, content, revenues, experiences, all of those things that go into making a real IP valuable. But then the second part of that is, like, you know, if a team is successfully doing that, then obviously there needs to be a connection to the community and how you can align that with the holders. And obviously, you know, we're big advocates of that. You know, obviously in the TokenWorks ecosystem, we've, you know, spoken about it before. Our sort of thesis around, you know, keeping value within the ecosystem, and that's why we launched Chimpster, because the volumes support the NFTs, and we've just moved to, you know, a royalty enforcing contract so that we can, you know, push more value into the community as a result of those royalties. So obviously that's probably one of the biggest parts that I think that the people in the space right now want to see some clear alignment with the team. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like financialized. It can be, you know, how is the team providing value to the community by giving them opportunities to get involved, or including them in content and building the brand with them, as opposed to, you know, outside of that. So I think that, like, proximity to the team and the community is always key, and just, you know, having fun.
That's the winning formula for sure. I feel like when we first got into the space, like the big compelling thing about NFTs was being part of the community and being part of building the project. And I feel like teams, it was a little bit strange, because back in 2021, 22, obviously they got a shitload of money. Like they got loads of money, like immediately off the bat. Like, you know, that maybe they minted out and they just raised like an obscene amount of funds. I think what they did is a lot of teams almost froze under the sheer amount of pressure and all that money. And they kind of actually, instead of going back to the community and involving them in the process of building it out, they kind of actually segregated themselves from the community. So a lot of these, like, even some of the big projects back then, like, they haven't built as openly and transparently and involving the community as much as I would have liked. And so that's why it's amazing to see what you're doing with Chimpers, what Good Vibes Club has done. And we've talked about it a ton in previous live streams, Jade and me, Simon, talking about how these community-focused projects are genuinely winning, and it makes total sense why they're winning, because holders of all projects, I feel, want to be involved more than an investor of some company where they're not expecting to be involved. Holders of NFT projects, they really want to be involved with the building of it and the promoting of it. They want the project to come and ask them, look, can you guys, like, what can the community do? What can you guys do to help uplift, to help promote, to help push this project out there? And when you're doing that, when you're working with your community like you are, and like Good Vibes Club are, I feel like that ticks the box for a lot of NFT holders and investors. It just makes so much sense.
I think it's really interesting what you said about the sheer scale of like what, especially in like the euphoric times like 2021, 2022, like teams, I think as well, like the proportions of which the expectations were for community as well, I think has shifted a lot, like during that time. Like then, it was, those projects need to be the next Disney, and if they're not able to execute on that, then it's a failure, and I think that sort of expectation did paralyze a lot of teams, and you can see the reason why they went outwards looking for all different kinds of ways to do that, and as a result, he said, like, alienated the community because they're so focused on really pushing to succeed in that expectation. But I think as now, like, times have shifted, and as time has gone on, I think the sort of expectations have leveled, and it really is, like you say, people just want to be a part of something where they can get involved and co-create and be a part of that journey. And obviously I think for that kind of needed to happen, like for everybody to reset, I guess.
It's matured a bit, hasn't it? Like the space as a whole, the community as well, like the NFT holders themselves have matured a bit. I mean, it used to be crazy back in the day, like people would unironically be typing like, when's the coin dropping, when's edition number 2, like when are you going to give me money back for like minting this? That was like unironically like what it was. And then I remember
those days. You were pissed when you got a 3x, mate. It was 10x or nothing. You have to be like those early days. You were pissed. Which Jacob, I think you could probably resonate with. The thing I like that you're doing is, firstly, the access. In a similar vein to Good Vibes Club, it's the boots on the ground. It's not too, not too above yourself to be able to message people back. Even after the event we had in the in-person event, you messaged myself, obviously Simon or Burge or whatever directly. And those things, those little touch points are a big deal for a lot of people, because I think we went through a phase where people were anonymous, firstly. You might not have been doxxed originally, I don't know. But the transparency of it all. And I think what will end up happening is a bunch of NFT collectors are going to realize that actually the founders can't create the next Disney, but they can create a little power community, a melting pot of a community that does some absolute fucking damage, sells a lot of products, and then market buys their tokens and has a baked-in royalty. So it's all kind of trapped into the ecosystem. But I actually have an opinion on it, which is, and you and I spoke about this, Jacob, when we were at the meetup, which was actually sharing more about your story and your journey. Because obviously when you read up about your story, I grew up in South Africa, but when I moved to England, I lived on a council estate. So I kind of resonate when people come from those kind of working class backgrounds. And I think there's a whole bunch of people, particularly in NFTs, who want to support the underdog. They want to rally behind you two because they kind of see you as the underdogs of the industry and want to support the underdog. And I think that's a thing that you guys can put out, certainly as brothers. Have you ever thought about that? Like, because obviously you got the content arm of the business. The content, by the way, even though fucking NFTs are capitulated, are going absolutely bananas. I mean, you're getting millions of views, which I'm sure will translate into something down the other end. But have you ever thought about, between the pair of you, maybe doing like putting your personal journeys out in business or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's so valuable. Just getting your face out. Like you said, was I doxed originally? I wasn't, and then slowly sort of worked my way through. And actually, looking back, X has just published a new feature. I think you can look back at like the most liked posts that you've done, so you can sort of filter through. And all of mine were like back in 2021 when I first joined the space, and some of my posts were very much driven by personal branded sense, whereas now like I'm very much the chimpers face. But previously it was discussing I've started my newsletter, and
are we going to dig up some old political posts?
No, I think I am very much just like a robot in terms of NFTs. And back then it was just like, a month ago I was working in a restaurant, and today I've published on like Cointelegraph, and that sort of does resonate. People like to hear the stories, and I guess it has like sort of been less of a focus.
I'm curious why you come away from that.
Yeah, I think it's for me back then it was very much I was a creator. It was my personal brand. And I didn't have a business. So like, whereas now it's very much Chimpers is the top of the focus. But I don't disagree with the fact that personal branding is absolutely huge. It's just I'm needing to do more of it. So I think getting on to spaces, of course, I've done that a lot, and just being more actively involved is always important. But I think it's just the nature of as well, like us British guys, like I'm maybe speaking for you guys, but for me personally, there's just I'm not somebody to really
put yourself
feel like put myself out there in terms of really.
It is a quintessentially British thing, isn't it? It's kind of like we'll just sit in the background. This is why Brits are the best at queuing. If you see a queue, I think it could be in any country in the world per capita. There's definitely a Brit in there because they're just perfect. They just conform.
I think it's
No, I was just gonna say it's interesting because like there's a lot of other analogies that you can use as well. But like that obviously then means that the Americans where it comes more naturally for them to be put themselves out there a bit more, then that obviously means that they get more of the spotlight, right? Because they're more comfortable doing that. There's more of them as well. So it's like it's even harder to break out as like a Brit who's like a co-founder. Like you should be massive, like even more so than you are, because how many fucking NFT co-founders or founders are there in the UK? Like of big projects, of major projects. Like you should really have much more a much bigger following, because it's insane what you've been able to pull off. Whereas over in America, like I don't know, like I think it's just harder for you. I think it's just harder for you because, like you say, you're less kind of comfortable putting yourself out there. I think you're getting there though. You're getting there. You're gradually working, getting better.
It's a good point, Bert.
Yeah, for me, it's mainly been a priority of like I'm absolutely capable of doing it, and I do enjoy doing sort of personal branded stuff. And
but
getting my face
Chimpers
out
is the
there.
focus.
But
right?
Chimpers, it's like prioritizing, you know, I'm doing this for Chimpers, I'm not doing this for me. Like, I'm doing this for
Yes,
the
yeah, yeah.
community. And it's like, that is what has always taken precedence. But I understand as well that, especially in the NFT community, in the sort of landscape, it is very much driven by personality. It's very much driven by people. And, you know, as you said, Jayden, as well, people resonate with stories. So as well as the Chimpers world, and like for us, like we've always been, let's let the brand do the talking, let's let the tangibles do the talking. And that's been, you know, building the brand to, you know, 3.6 million followers, and at the same time, in our, you know, small community circle, we're very accessible, very, you know, very much in that sort of sphere of anybody can connect with us at any point in time. But it's just on a bigger level in terms of pushing the, you know, the face of us out there. It's just been less of a focus. But I definitely don't disagree. It's something that we probably should be doing, and will, you know, probably pay off, you know,
Yeah,
really,
because
really
you can
greatly.
channel the focus back, can't you?
Yeah.
I do, Jacob, I do a lot of, I say I do a lot. I have been doing a lot over the last couple of weeks because it's picking up for some reason. I'm getting a sense that NFTs are picking up because I've got artists contacting me, people wanting to launch NFT projects. So I'm getting a sense that things are picking up, and I always use you during these consultancy calls as an example. So, you know,
Thank you.
massive credit to you guys. The one question I did want to ask, and this will be a question that most people who I guess hold your NFTs will want to ask, is you have two arms of this. You have the NFT arm and you have the content arm. How are you going to turn those followers and views into productivity? I mean, what's the plan? Is there anything that you can share with us, or because you've clearly got outsized, I say advantage because of the work that you put in. But you're getting outsized views and followers compared to every other Web3 company. What is the plan to kind of feed that back into the NFT holders in terms of value?
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of why it's valuable for the community indirectly, firstly, is just because of the importance of growing beyond Web3 bubble as a brand, for longevity, for a brand that is going to build real fandom, and for people to, you know, when we're creating products, when we're releasing licensed deals and having our online shop, you know, we have to have real people collecting those, as well as just the core super fans. So having that, you know, distribution is huge, and it's not a case of converting those right away. It's like a gradual, incremental, step-by-step approach of nurturing, you know, community and brand over time. And content is the biggest reason for people to fall in love and stick around. So having a pipeline of content, whether or not that's like reaching virally or not, it doesn't really make a difference. As long as you're creating content that people can resonate with over a long period of time, you're building the brand. And for us, that's been the biggest focus. And you know, something that a lot of brands in the NFT space have started to pursue. And obviously, there's the reason that it's valuable because of the brand equity. You know, Chimpers is no longer just a NFT project. We're now in the space of the entertainment world, you know, having collaborations that weren't possible if we hadn't entered this sort of content zone. You know, we wouldn't have been able to have a collab with Fugglers if we hadn't put in 2-3 years of content where, you know, people are paying attention, we're building fandom, community, and brands like that can start to pay attention and go, oh, actually, Chimpers is a really hot, viral brand that we should probably look at collaborating with. So that wouldn't be possible. And obviously, all of these things add to the arsenal of the, you know, the reputation of Chimpers as a brand, and it just continually compounds. But in terms of how we're looking at bringing that value to the community, I think it's a long-term process. Like, it's, for us, the thesis, as I said at the start, was that alignment, and we have already said that, as well as, you know, reinvesting fees back that is in the NFT market through royalties, Chimpster fees, that goes back into buying NFTs and supporting the community. but also as we grow as a brand, which, you know, we have the real sort of architecture to do now. We've got that foundation set. It's just a case of growing. And when we are releasing products, when we are having drops, when we are, you know, being discovered in the real world, in real shops, in real sort of areas for people to collect our plushies and collectibles, you know, revenues from those, we'll be able to allocate a portion back to the community. And it's not like we're saying something is set in stone. You know, it's just the intention and the intent that we're not a community or team that is looking to extract. It's as we grow the brand, you know, we'll always reinvest back into the community. And I think that's important. Yeah. And it won't translate over time. You know, the floor price isn't going to 10x just because the brand is getting millions of followers. But as we said at the very start, when people do come back to NFTs, what they're going to look at is who are the brands that have been not only building real community and alignment and involving them in that process, but which brands have actually got the legs to grow as a real fandom and a real IP that can, you know, extend many, many years beyond. And obviously you can't just do that with NFTs. So I think that's just one of the biggest, well, it's a hugely significant reason for why, you know, building the brand is so valuable, not only for us as a company, but as, you know, for the whole community at large.
I agree with you on the views thing. I think you're spot on because it does take down some of the barriers with collaborating with people. I find it with us, even though we're relatively small at the moment. In fact, for the 82 people in here, just do me a massive favor. Please give this a share. David Chidji shared it. Thank you very much. And Mikey DLS shared it as well. Really appreciate you. And Amit. Guys, give it a share. It is how the streams grow. I actually don't know how the algorithm works because sometimes it goes an absolute missile and other times it doesn't or whatever. I've got a video to share. Usually we do a bit of a viral piece, Jacob. This time, it's actually a video that I've done, a green screen on the market. It didn't really get many views on X, but on the other platforms that I shared it on, I've actually got a heap of abuse. Basically, people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to share it. And you guys...
Always going to be a good one then.
Yeah, you guys can give me your 2 cents. Some of it's a bit of hopium. It's a bit of like, guys, crypto's going to pump, blah, blah, blah. And obviously we've got bombs going off in Iran and Bitcoin plummeting and, you know, Trump with his tariff button, banging it like that, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to share this video in a second. And then after the video, what we're going to do is just get into some other NFT projects. And Jacob, we've got a few questions to ask you around what NFT projects you're bullish on. And then what we'll do is end on some of the stuff that's happening in the TokenWorks ecosystem. And then also squeeze in a Burgess Bangers in there as well, which I know he's excited. This is the first time, actually, Jacob, this is the first time he's been on time for a live stream. He was actually early. And I'm there with my coffee. I'm like, oh shit, Burge, you're on StreamYard. But anyway, I'm going to share this.
Locked in.
And obviously, look, just pretend it's not me doing the video and just give me your honest thoughts. I'm going to share this on here. But this is a video that's going viral a little bit on Facebook and TikTok. Right, let's start this again. It's a bit iffy, these charts. Right, here we go. There's a Bitcoin chart in 2020. It's looking eerily similar to where we are at the moment, although it's a bit iffy, these charts, because you could probably find a shape or a pattern that looks like that in 2026 or 2024, to be honest. Where it's slightly different is the fact that M2 money supply is at all-time highs. Interest rates are due to come down. They're due to roll debts. The oil prices are fluctuating a little bit because of the war in Iran. But there's a whole bunch of different reasons why these asset prices are going to go up in price. Notwithstanding the fact that we are now due a cycle. Now, we're in year 5 now. And I think we're just going to go to fucking Valhalla, probably in the next couple of months. I can just see it. The Clarity Act gets passed, the war in Iran gets sorted out, and then there's the midterms. We go. So, honest thoughts only, chap.
I don't.
I've got to turn this.
Yeah, there's definitely some opium in there for sure, but I genuinely agree though. Like I said it. Like I know the end of 2025 didn't go how people thought it would. With they were playing the 4-year cycle. They thought it was going to be predictable. They thought they were going to be able to cash out at the high highs. I know it didn't go the way people thought it would. I know that even the first few months of this year has been tumultuous, especially in the crypto market. NFTs, I think if you were there and you remember, right at the start of the year, NFTs had this slight uptick, and then obviously with the rest of, and then with crypto going down, it got hammered. But it does feel like it's time. I don't know if you agree with that, Jacob. I don't know if that even matters, that whether we feel like it's time, but I don't know. From someone who's been in the space since 2021, it feels like having, especially in the NFT space as well, having been through this long bear after a relatively, if you compare it, like a comparatively short bull run of maybe a year and a half. Now we've had this bear for the last 3 or 4 years. It feels like
we deserve it. It's like we deserve something. Like, give us fucking something. So basically, I was just on my phone then, and I tried to get TikTok up because basically it's going viral on TikTok, and I got a whole bunch of people abusing me. Obviously, these internet, a whole bunch of people, obviously I'm saying these words now, TikTok and Instagram, and I don't know if it ruins the algorithm, but we haven't really broken out here. So, a whole bunch of people obviously give their opinions and now are experts because they go on TikTok lives and they start talking about these things. And some of the things they come out with, some of the responses I've had from people are just fucking like sending me laughing emojis. We're in a bear market, get over it. Or like the abuse you get from people on the internet.
But people were calling people were saying NFTs were dead when they weren't even dead. People were, I remember being in the Twitch streams and people were shitting on NFTs when they were going for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. People will all, there's a widespread amount of people out there that are just haters of NFTs, and then they're not going to get it until it's either repackaged or until we've been through a few cycles where, but I mean, the same thing happened with crypto. People didn't accept crypto at all. Crypto was like that thing that you shouldn't bring up on the date, or, that thing that you shouldn't bring up with a new group of people. Yeah, NFTs, I think NFTs has forever been that thing that you shouldn't bring up with a group of new people. And I still think it's going to be that thing for at least another cycle or two that we would have to go through before it starts to reach some level of acceptance. I mean, we only saw crypto become accepted in the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, even AI is getting it's sort of taking the flak at the moment in terms of the general population. That's sort of been superseded, the general hate towards NFTs.
NFTs is so irrelevant now. People just think it's dead.
Yeah,
there's got to be someone to blame. Who are we going to blame when everything's decentralized and it's just like, oh, it's Elon who put the algorithm in the AI.
Yeah, I think it's just
getting attacked by your robot. Fucking hell, come on.
People don't like change or the unknown, and especially when it's something that can significantly flip the routine of what is considered normal. Whether that's NFTs and just crypto in general or AI. And I think, it is quite, it's a shame that there is that perception, because even, what Pudgy World had just done this week and the sheer, success of that, and how important that is for the space to break out, and you still get, the subtweets of them reaching the normies, and people are just hating on it, because they're planting it alongside NFTs, and it just, there's that sort of reputation that just stains the growth, and it is a difficult thing to straddle with. But you have to remember as well that the people who do complain on X, it's maybe not proportionate for absolutely the whole world.
I can tell you right now, they complain on LinkedIn as well. In fact, LinkedIn's the worst.
I was surprised you didn't mention LinkedIn, because you got probably the best comments from there, or the best.
I get CEOs, branding experts, marketing experts, all just tell me that NFTs are a bunch of bullshit. And I'm like, guys, whilst they have a premium subscription to LinkedIn and a grey tick on there, whilst having all sorts of other digital assets that they probably don't even know that are actually NFTs. It's madness. But then you have to kind of go on that education journey. And what a lot of people do, funnily enough, you know, the meme that's playing out on X at the moment, which is someone posts a picture of an NFT and they go, this was bought for 50,000 or 100,000 and now it's worth $2. And it's like it's like a Beeple, or the Beeple one. The Beeple piece of art. This is bought for $69 million and now it's worth $100. Or the first tweet. That is a meme that derives from LinkedIn, because people on LinkedIn are actually sharing that and believing that that is the price of these things. And then I'll go in the comments, which is actually just the worst fucking thing for your mental health, is to go into the comment section of any platform. And I'll say, no, guys, actually some of these are selling for like, so let's say it's Bored Ape Yacht Club. I'm like, the floor price is like 10 grand, $10,000. Yeah, it was high, but a whole bunch of people are still up like nearly 100x because they minted it for $100 or $200. And they're not, it doesn't compute.
It doesn't compute. No, it's no. Like Jacob was saying, it's so it's in fairness, probably what when I first came into NFTs, now knowing like, and sitting here now in 2026, I probably didn't acknowledge just how foreign and, you know, how hard it would be for normal people to get their head around this. Like, I've seen all of the Twitch chat comments. I've been in the comment section of these posts on X, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and just people can't get their head around it. They think it's a picture, like a digital picture that anyone could just copy paste, and it's selling for over $100,000, and it just blows their mind. And it's so absurd to them that they don't even try. They don't even, I mean, most people don't even try and get their head around it. They don't even entertain the fact that it could make sense. And I think part of that comes down to, you know, obviously back in 2021 and 2022, a lot of the stuff then that was happening didn't make sense. Like, it was either overinflated, and combine that with the sheer amount of, and we have to say it, the sheer amount of projects that were complete scams. You know, like, you were saying, Jayden, every project that you minted 10x, but how many of those projects were complete scams and completely rug pulled? I mean, a sheer number of those projects were complete rug pulls. Like,
100%. Even the good ones went down 90%. Yeah,
even the good ones went down 9%. The bad ones were, you know, complete rug pulls. They never really did anything as to what Jacob said, of like actually building out a project and building out a brand and a business. And as we were talking about earlier, Jacob, I mean, you had something that we've mentioned in the past, Jayden, was like, you know, there's artists that were then left, you know, they'd raised a shit ton of money and they didn't necessarily know how to run a business or build a business. They were just artists, but they got given a lot of money. So I'd
be surprised how many people actually got wiped out, because if they minted, let's say they minted an NFT project and they had a whole bunch of ETH, I'd be surprised to see how many people managed that process properly of actually selling the ETH. Because what would have happened is ETH would have dropped by 70%, and then you were left with a tax event.
And then
I reckon a lot of people got wiped out. What do you reckon, Jake? Because obviously you were running a project at the time. Is that something that you had to think about managing?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was.
Did you just while I'm going to interrupt you there, if you don't mind me asking, I know this is a personal question, but when you minted, did you sell straight back into cash or did you leave it into Ethereum?
So originally, when we first, prior to Chimpers, when we was launching the Chronicles story, that was all in ETH, and at the time, like even just like from like a UK sort of legislation. And just sentiment around crypto, like it was very difficult to open a bank account and incorporate the company. So that was a whole process to begin with, and that's you know, one of the many reasons why a lot of people sort of incorporated offshore and elsewhere. But we stayed in the UK, and when we did launch Chimpers, there was a huge tax event, and I can absolutely see why. You know, many could get burned from that. And even, you know, we was quite smart with it. And was able to, like you say, like put it into cash like quite swiftly. It still didn't change the fact that on that sale there, you know, the sort of corporate tax was huge. So the corporation tax. So yeah, it's not easy being in the UK for sure.
And that's just if you did nothing with the money. Like that's like obviously, you know, if you sold the ETH for cash, but then you got to imagine, like as Jacob was saying earlier, the amount of pressure that was on these people of like basically all these communities would be like, look, if you're not the next Disney, you're dead to me. So you better be the next Disney. So it's like these people who, and I have to imagine quite a lot of them weren't experienced really in running a business, you know, especially if you're coming as an artist, you know. I think there were some artists that knew how to run a business, but I think there was definitely some that didn't, right? And so you got to imagine that so much pressure on them, they would be pressured to try and make moves with this money. You got loads of money just coming in. You're pressured to like, well, what are we going to do with this money? We got to spend this money, right, to try and create something that the community is happy with. And that if you get into that kind of rabbit hole of or like you go down that pathway of just spending money and trying to make the right decisions, but they're not actually the right or savvy business decisions, then you're going to end up with, you know, not a profitable business and hemorrhaging money, right? And eventually that money is going to run out. Or maybe if it didn't even run out entirely, you're going to be left in a spot which is far, far worse than what you started with. And you're going to be left with a ton of regret and scars. Like, there's definitely things that they probably did correct, but they probably did more wrong than they did right. And that's why you're seeing so few projects right now that people have consolidated into.
Yeah, I think like there's not a lot of like in terms of that, it's quite a huge feat to undertake, and I think everyone now has seen it play out over the past few years. That, you know, launching an NFT went from being something that was really easy to something that has, you know, significant implications, and you have to be ready for it and understand what it is that you're getting into. So I think it went from, you know, selling an NFT became, you know, something that was for fun and for art, and it definitely still can be, but at a scale of, if you're creating a character collection, I think the sort of you know, how others understand that is that's, you know, you're raising money so that you can build around that as well. So I think that's really something that maybe there's not a lot of teams out there that want to take that on. But of course, it's not to say that people who launched collections back in the day, you know, they might have just been artists and just got you know, that huge traction, and may have never even have asked for that traction in the first place. And that suddenly becomes a difficult spot to be in, because you have to be really clear with your intentions. Otherwise, you'll just get eaten up by the community, and they'll dictate you know, where you're, you know, going. And I think that obviously burned a lot of people, because, like you said, Burge, it probably left scars, and, you know, they didn't want to be involved in the space. I know a handful of people who had those sort of scenarios and have just left the space entirely and given up on it. And you know, it's definitely such a hard thing to straddle with. Like, I just think that now, like you say earlier, I think the space has just matured a lot. And yeah, but then at the same time, I think, you know, as you said as well, like, community is now huge. Like, people aren't necessarily as, you know, excitable about you know, things that aren't generating fun and community, and just harking back to the, you know, the basics. So
yeah, the bar was a lot lower, right, before, in terms of like coming out with like whatever you were doing, like an announcement, or like, oh, we made this. The bar was a lot lower in terms of like what people were willing to accept. Like, oh, that's great, like at least you're doing something. Now the bar feels a lot higher in terms of like, you know, like, bro,
I think it's just people.
You're not bringing money back to me.
I disagree with that. I think people have just.
Oh, you think it was the other way around?
No. I think people have come full circle. I think people have come full circle and gone, actually, this is just about community. In the beginning, these things were financialized, and because, of course, mate, if you're going to get 40x on something for doing nothing, for putting a fucking, and I use the same example of the raccoon with a firework in its door. But I'm just saying, like some of the dumb shit I bought that went up 10x that I should have sold and blah blah blah. It was just money for free. But now it's actually the real reason why NFTs exist, because of the organizing of the communities. You know, Burge, you and I, obviously we've the three of us have had a meetup together or whatever. But also there's VFriends meetups that happen. I'm sure there'll be Chimpers meetups that happen in the UK, and that is what the NFTs are about. So it's kind of people have come full circle and gone, actually, I've been through the financialization phase. Now it's just about, let me stick with my mates and blah, blah, blah.
That's why we saw such a consolidation, right? Like people were, a lot of these projects died out and the communities died out with them. Like, you know, the real lifeblood of the community was just drained. And then what they did is they were like, well, who's actually building something for real, and where is there actually a community I can go to? And that's why people have pivoted from whatever project they were into to the likes of Chimpers, Good Vibes Club, Pudgy, VFriends, Bored Ape. You know, like that's why they and it's an interesting one, Jacob, because I do feel like Bored Ape is almost split up a little bit as well, with like some people who are into other side and some people who are a bit more like tuned out the space.
I just want to pivot slightly, Jacob, just to bring you into this. You talk about Chimpers often, which is great because of course you would. But I guess one of the things that you don't get asked, and I've listened, I did a lot of research on you. The interviews I do a lot of research on. But people don't really ask your opinion about some of the other projects. And I know listen, you're not going to be shooting from the hip here or anything like that, but are there any projects that you think just really stand out as ones to look out for outside of Chimpers? Any NFT projects? I mean, even crypto coins or anything like that you bullish on, that you think, hey, this has got legs?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a ton of like projects that I personally respect everyone that is building like in the space now, and we take a leaf out of everyone's book and support the things that everyone does. Like whether it was like Pudgy World this week, I had to play on that and it was amazing, and it makes me feel really optimistic about the onboarding of more people into the space. And then there's projects that crop up that are new, like I said to Burge earlier, like Normies, and Nibbles, Frankie Frog's project as well. So those have really reinvigorated a lot of fun and excitement into the community, and they've got great.
Just on that point, do you think that people who get into those projects now have to wait for that 3-year, 5-year runway that you guys have just gone through and been battle tested? Or do you think that because my view is that those end up being a short-term flip, because great IP and projects take time. So they may arbitrage the lower floor price as demand picks up and people sell out of it, and then actually, like Burge says, make a rotation into something established and more thoughtful, almost in the way that you'd have a barbell investing method with Bitcoin. You've got a whole bunch of altcoins. Oh, this one goes up, I'll just rotate it into, because it's early cycle, early stage asset, I'll rotate it into the kind of established battle tested asset that has the Lindy effect. Do you think the same will happen in NFTs? Is that how you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to like foreshadow like the future. Like, of course, we've had our own journey, and I think like the space has just like matured like so much during that time. And who's to say that, like, for instance, a project that launches today doesn't even have to go through that like turbulent process because of the way in which like the market evolves, and they could exceed expectations and just like skyrocket. And it's difficult to say, but like personally, I think that definitely does like test the community, and I think any project with staying power has to be around for at least a year, and I think, as I said at the start, everybody that is now, here today. They are dipping into projects that they believe truly will be around for the next few years. So yeah, it's interesting, but who knows?
I think the other thing that projects are going to have to contend with is actually the success of the project.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't become, I'm not saying it's self-defeating, but what ends up happening is if the project's successful and it reaches a certain floor price, there has to be something that justifies that floor price. So some of it's history, nostalgia, those are obvious ones. But if it's an IP project, for example, if Chimpers gets to a 4, 5, 6, 10 ETH floor, which is, to be honest, is realistic, is there a plan? Or is there a plan to try and sustain those levels of demand?
I don't think anybody can control the floor price of the collection. Like, obviously, it's all relative to what's going on. Like you say, like for us at Chimpers, like we've been growing faster than ever, doing more than ever, far much beyond the 2022 days when historically we had a higher floor price. And that's obviously boils down to like various different factors, like the market, the people involved in the space, just the nature of NFTs in general. But we just feel that it's a ticking time bomb. Like, and as much as we continue to compound these huge brand moments and growth and just build on the tangibles, it'll reflect in the NFTs. And of course, we're big believers in the sort of token works alignment sort of ecosystem, whether that's Quirkies, Good Vibes Club, Meebits. So obviously big, advocates of those guys as well, because they're on the same path as us and believe and see the importance of aligning with the community as well. But yeah, I think everyone is sort of doing and working their own ways to try and bring value to the community, bring value to Web3, which is, probably one of the biggest things. Like, as we've just been talking about before, like there's such a huge stain on the ecosystem at large. So how do we break that barrier down and continue to push Web3 IP forwards? And that's, thinking about perhaps not the financialized elements, but the characters, the IP, the brand, and finding ways to onboard people into that. So obviously that will be the future of NFTs if we want to grow it.
No, I love that. Before we just go on to the token work stuff, Bert, I just want to bring you in. Have you got any thoughts just on the NFT side and obviously the floor price stuff? You got involved in VFriends like I did. It went up to a 23 Ethereum floor. I know that you had offers on your gift goat, which was like 55, maybe 60 Ethereum offers, which is insane. And I remember us sitting there debating whether actually it was going to go to 100 ETH, which, to be honest, is fucking bonkers. When I look back at it, I was like, I don't know if I want to sell this.
It was definitely happening. We were like, Bored Ape's done it. I mean, VFriends is still legit. They got Gary V. No, like, I think it's great. I really like Jacob's answer there. I think I do. Well, you know what I foresee happening? I think Jacob's right. I don't think these other projects will have to do as much to get to a price that's probably higher than what Chimper's floor price is currently. But what I think what will happen is if we see the market pick up, obviously Chimper's is going to go way up. I think. I think these other projects that have just come about, that have just launched today or this year, are going to go up as well, of course. But the problem is, when that cycle ends, I think the battle tested projects that have survived one cycle, that have lived through the bear market, that have built in the bear market, as Chimpers have, I think they are going to sustain much better. Like, they're obviously still going to go down if the market collapses, but they're going to sustain, and they're going to be much stronger bets, much better bets than the likes of these newer projects. Like, it's all well and good when everything's going up, or when you just start a project and you know, pretty much everything is upside, right? Like, you know, you haven't had a point where it's gone below mint. But a lot of the projects that have still been here, that are still here today, that are still building, have had those bad times when it's gone below mint, where, you know, whether it be Chimpers, whether it be VFriends, you know, they've gone below mint and they've survived through that period of time and they've kept building, and that matters. That matters for sure. I think I think personally, like, I'm not looking really at any new projects that are starting starting this year. But in fairness, Good Vibes Club, you know, I would have probably rather said that, you know, the projects like Chimpers, like VFriends, like Bored Ape, like Pudgy, I would have backed them more than Good Vibes Club. And yet Good Vibes Club was an absolute success, and they launched in 2025. So, you know, I think it can be done, but the bar, I think it's much harder to do. Like Good Vibes Club, I think it's like a needle in a haystack. We'll look back at it.
I think the thing people miss is obviously the launch. Good Vibes Club had this Discord that they were building one-on-one, a bit like in the way, I guess, Jacob, you did it with yours, where it was the one-on-one thing. I know Oliver had a YouTube channel with like 40,000 subscribers. He was teaching them how to do art and all those sorts of things. But that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to launch naked, a lot of people I'm speaking to through LinkedIn, the kind of dinosaur app, is the first thing that they say to me, and they think it's going to get me really excited, is, oh, we've got a big marketing budget. I'm like, okay, think about this. Even if that works and it drives the price up, there's nothing that's going to sustain it. You need that community feel. You know, it's like with VFriends, there's an institutionalized behavior. It's like people live the values of the characters within the community. Not everyone, obviously, but that's kind of like the ethos and the DNA of the community. And everyone's got this institutionalized behavior. It's like, I feel it with Bored Ape Yacht Club. I feel it with Chimpers. I feel it with Good Vibes Club. You go into the Good Vibes Club Discord, it's a fucking different planet in there. That is not crypto. That is there's a behavior that they're teaching people, and it's the DNA filtering through the founders, which circles back all the way to the beginning of the conversation that we had about share the story about who you are, you know, give some insights into your personality. But just, guys, just for the 122 of you in here, we've probably got about another 15 minutes left. But Birch, just do me a favor, have a look on Substack for any questions. Just while I'm doing that, Jacob,
I was just going to speak to Good Vibes for a second whilst you guys was on that as well. Like it's actually their 1 year anniversary today, which is like pretty special. But we've had the pleasure of speaking with Ty and Chris and the team, like, you know, many times, and we're so like aligned in our thinking, like in the way in which that we approach community. And I think that they have been so successful, and it really is a really great thing for NFTs, is that they've been so successful because of the grassroots nature of it. And I think they are the epitome of like what changed from like the previous sort of launches to now, was that, you know, people want to be involved in community. You know, the team are family led. They have the animation studio. They create content, the stories. People want to be involved in those. And
do you speak often?
Sorry?
Do you speak often to them?
Yeah. Like, I'm always in Ty's DMs and vice versa. And we had a really lovely call a week or two ago where we just spoke at length about the space, and just, you know, we're going to be doing something together as well, but also just in general, because we're in the TokenWorks ecosystem and talking about strategy tokens. And I think that, you know, we're just so aligned with the way that we think. And I think that they have just done a terrific job in building a community and just defying what was the typical expectations of an NFT project. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do all these crazy things. It's about building the community. And as you said, Jayden, as well, it doesn't matter if, you know, the floor price pumps to 3 ETH, and if there's nothing to sustain that, there's not enough people to, you know, collect, it's going to go right back down. And, you know, the most important thing that you have is community, and just building that brick by brick so that it can be stronger than ever. So they've just done that amazingly well. And it's, been, you know, a real example for everyone else, really. I think
100%. I think it gives people, it will give teams that are legit a real sense of, well, if they can do it, so can we. And at the same time, from my point of view as well, I think the way they've done it is exceptional, and I think it will be hard to replicate. Like, I just think it's just tough now, especially because you've also, I also feel any new project that comes about, you know, now or in the future has to try to set itself apart from other projects. And I feel like that's also tough now because there's so many great projects that are executing. I feel like it's harder now to be unique, to have a unique way of running an NFT project.
Yeah,
you know, like
I think
I feel like the
definitely.
game plan that you did, and maybe Pudgy's, of like tapping in and building that Web 2 audience, that for me makes so much sense. I'm surprised more projects haven't gone that way, but I have seen a lot of projects, like a number of the big projects, go that way. I feel like how would you differentiate yourself now if you were making an NFT project and trying to market it? You know, because to me, I'm not buying it unless I see something different, which makes me think, oh, this is worth like looking at because it's doing something a little bit differently. Like, I would rather just go for the likes of Chimpers or Good Vibes Club, or stick with what I know with V Friends, which is like been, you know, the core project that I've stuck with.
That's the big predicament of like how can the space continue to grow and involve more people. And I think it's definitely tough, but also, you know, like you say, like it's hard to sustain. The space is very small, like the number of participants. There was a discussion around like how many people, you know, are actively involved in NFTs. Somebody had put out on X, you know, for opinion and debate, like how many. And it's, I think like the consensus was, you know, around like the 3,000 average mark of like active, you know, people in NFTs. And who knows if like that's you know, that's just a guess from people in that replies. Who knows what the actual statistic is? But it just goes to show that you know, NFTs are definitely dictated by a very small number of people, and the network, you know, there's different factors for reasons why NFTs can go up. And I think obviously like differentiation are, you know, all of these different things, but the network of people who are going to be invested into that community as well is absolutely huge, and is very, you know, much a driving factor for, you know, who can be, you know, in the top 10, who cannot, you know, because it is still very, very small, the number of people in the space.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you on that. I think I think there's going to be a whole bunch of points of differences here. I think without picking the bones out, there's too much. What we're going to do is move on to the token work stuff. But I think businesses that have built-in communities and are able to produce productivity, which leads to profits, which then leads to market buying a strategy token, just seems to be the perfect way, Jacob. So this segues nicely onto the token work stuff. But just walk me back through, like, right to the moment where you thought, right, we're gonna adopt the strategy token as our native token. Just before you dive in there, Simon's just put, I look so much younger and I have hair on this live stream. Simon's obviously tuning in from Norway. Very jealous. But yeah, thanks for the comment, Simon. Really appreciate it. But yeah, just walk me back through the moment where you decided, okay, we're going to do this strategy token. There's a lot of incomplete information, although it seemed on the open market. Did it feel like a bit of a risk, or were you taking a bit of a punt at something, or did you know straight away that this was going to provide value?
So for us, like, we had always been a very grassroots, community-driven project, and we was not very like risk averse, where, you know, we didn't launch a second collection during that euphoria or trend. I could say we didn't launch a native token, and primarily because we thought that those things would, you know, be very much a value moment for a very short time, and then we'd be left picking up the pieces, and it would be a net negative to the community at large over the long term, because there's a lot of baggage there, and if you don't have a real strategic plan for it, it's not really going to pan out too well. So for us, we was very much focused on our mission of growing the brand, like during that 2-year period after we launched, was the socials, brand growth, the infrastructure behind that, content, and just in building products that help us grow organically in the space, whether that's our collectible card app or other gamified experiences. But there's always a question of, for us, like, how do we grow our distribution and the number of people in the community? And obviously, a token is a great way of doing that. But there was still that, there's still many examples telling us, this is not the right thing to do with our community yet. But when TokenWorks came around, and they launched the first cohort of projects, and there was that huge hype and momentum, and of course that was a factor of this felt like a moment that we could capitalize on and build a lot of excitement around it. But at the same time, it was the mechanics behind it. There was a clear connection to the NFTs. This wasn't just a product outside of our NFT ecosystem that we had to manage. This was almost not like a typical token. It was a different category of like token collectible that is connected to the NFT ecosystem. So the fact that it would support the NFTs was like a huge reason why we felt like it just came up. Like it was just like a eureka moment that, wow, like this could be our step to actually building that distribution. And of course, we wasn't under any guise that it was going to be a skyrocket moment. In fact, it was the opposite. It was one of the reasons why we liked it, was that it allowed us to organically grow the token from zero. So, the fair market launch, all the community could buy it from zero. There was no sniping. Taxes was in place to guardrail that. And we was able to market buy it alongside them. So there's no high expectations, or, it's not silly. And, that was really attractive to us. So it's just having an extra sort of weapon and an extra tool to support the NFTs allows us to build our distribution organically to the community with a low barrier to entry, and capitalize on that moment. And of course, we then decided we'd build out the chimp paper, which was this big sort of white paper outlining why we adopted it to our ecosystem token, and then obviously tying in the brand growth and the sort of vision of us being able to reinvest back into the ecosystem as well by via buybacks of Chimpster, which we've done through various drops that we do. So it just felt like a really great way for us to align with the community even further, and give another way for people to join the community over time.
Because I wouldn't have looked at Chimpster if I wasn't in Punk Strategy and I didn't have it on that aggregator site of the different NFT projects. I know we got in on kind of day one, didn't we, Birch? Birch, you've got a very good view on this around, because Jacob, I think a big function of the success you had with the strategy token was that initial shot in the arm. And I know, Birch, you've got a couple of opinions around actually these new launches and there being a bit of not PR in the background, because some of them were stealth launches, but just like trading that first day and getting a huge bunch of NFTs in the treasury, and that kind of setting you on your way. Have you got any thoughts on that, Birch, or anything that Jacob said?
I just think it was a super smart decision. I mean, you got like Jacob probably, I mean, he would have seen other projects launch their own token, right? Launch their own coin. And I don't think, maybe unless you're like, one of the big projects, like maybe like something like ApeCoin, Pengu. But these even big projects like Doodles, for example, they have their own token, right? I don't think that's a net positive that token has had. Whereas we, me, Jayden, Simon, we are big fans of the strategy tokens because, as you said, Jake, they seem to align perfectly with your community, with your NFT holders, which are the people who you probably value the most, the people who backed you from the very beginning. And like you said, it didn't actually feel like this other thing. Whereas if you were to launch something like, just another token or coin as your ecosystem token, that would have felt like another thing and another group of people that you would have to like be thinking, oh, how can we make sure they're good? Whereas this is like just an extension of the NFTs. It's an extension of the NFT project. So, that as long as you're like it doesn't really feel like you're adding much more burden to you. But like you say, it's like an additional tool that's kind of like what Jayden was saying. He feels like, well, if you can make a profitable business and then maybe, I don't know what your thoughts, but at least what we've seen with Good Vibes Club, for example, is like they're kind of market buying their token back. It just makes so much sense. Like there's loads of ways. You don't have to market buy strategy token back. There's other ways you can do it. But
yeah, Jake, were there any, because there'll be people who had kind of stuck with you during the bear market and held the NFTs. Was there any pushback from people who were expecting a TGE potentially and a big payday versus
I mean, we've straddled with that, like most projects have. Like there's always that expectation, and I think prior to the TokenWorks ecosystem actually coming to fruition, there was always talks in our like community through certain minorities asking about that, and it's always something that we pushed to the side because we felt that we were serving the wider community a benefit, and of course, like you want to bring as much value to everyone, but there's also the long-term future of the NFTs, and I think we've never lost any of our sort of cards. Like we've always kept them close, and I think launching on TokenWorks has just allowed us to surprise the community in a way. Like we are looking out for the ecosystem long term, and not just thinking about how to create a value extraction moment. So yeah, there was obviously debate, and but not necessarily a huge amount. And when TokenWorks launched, of course, there was a lot of hype and excitement around wanting to be on that next cohort, and we was lucky enough to get in, very early. So yeah, it all worked out really nicely, and now we are building a treasury. Like we have market bought over, I think, like 60-70 million Chimpster at this point, and giving away a lot to the community.
What's that, 6% of the supply?
It's a large percent of the supply. So we're, I think, the second top holder of the and from there, like we're building our treasury, and we're soon releasing our collector hub, and we'll have quarterly reward seasons where just by holding your NFT, and actually we released a new product called the Chimpers Dojo Legacy Cards, which look at your sort of historical loyalty to the community and those rarities depending on how many points you had, and those cards will be the sort of tokens to qualify you for these quarterly reward seasons. And within that, there'll be Chimpster, there'll be NFTs, because we've also been, as a result of the royalties and Chimpster fees, been picking up NFTs from other projects to support the actual broader, NFT ecosystem and the projects that we really believe in supporting. And they'll be in that pool of rewards as well. And Chimpster will be, very much visualized in this collector hub. It'll be something that we're putting, spotlight on to show that, this community member's reputation is this. They own Chimpster, they own the NFTs, and we're building out this whole, our version of badges, which are chimpins. So like pins, like enamel pins, for instance, but you'll get them for traits and the NFTs, and also different holdings within the ecosystem. So yeah, I think overall, like the Chimpster sort of launch went down really well. Like it didn't go too high, and it also didn't drop too significantly. It's sort of like quite steadfast, and it's just a case of now, like with the community, growing it like organically, steadily over time, and working it into our ecosystem as we go.
I think the beauty of it is obviously you said about the content arm, and if that turns into merch sales and that drives revenue, that revenue can go back into market buying the token. And the beauty, just for people who think that we're talking a different language here, we're talking about the TokenWorks ecosystem, which is basically a perpetual flywheel. It's seemingly a better way of launching a ERC20 token for a project which is tied to the NFT, but it takes a 10% rake and builds up in a treasury, and it basically buys the floor of the NFT project. But I think the beauty of what you've done, Jacob, is the fact that now there's a baked-in royalty into the NFT, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So now you have.
I really like how you did that, Jacob. By the way, I think it looked really professionally done, really smooth. I can see, or I know there's always going to be the problem of getting people to migrate it over, and that happens over time. But you already had a significant chunk that migrated over. I think VeeFriends has the same problem. They've just migrated over from book games from a little while ago. Migrated book games over from Token Trove and from IMX to Base, and a bunch of those tokens haven't been migrated over yet. But hopefully, fingers crossed, people get to
we've had
eventually.
Yeah, we've had like, it was a great response, to be fair. And I think again, it's just the maturity of like the NFT sort of participants and community like landscape, is that royalties was always like something that was heavily contested for a certain point. Do projects deserve to have those royalties? Do traders deserve to be able to trade without royalties? But now we're at a point where actually, people can see the
value,
importance and value of teams being able to bring that back into the ecosystem. I think we had like 3,389 total today, so it's well over 50% migrated in the first like month or two, which is like definitely exceeded our expectation on how many would migrate originally.
You've got to imagine a lot of people, like holders, like as we said, are inactive, right? They're
dormant.
They're dormant, exactly. So all it will take is a bull run to come back, and then I would imagine we'll see a lot more.
Yeah, I'm like, I do own an NFT. Maybe I do know what NFTs are again, because now the floor price is 2.5 ETH or whatever it is. I'm gonna Burge. We're gonna do your Burge bangers. But we'll just keep it like concise. But I just want to end on this segment of the TokenWorks bit, and Jacob, I just want to get your opinions on things. Obviously, Adam Levitt goes by Rhinotic, who's the founder of TokenWorks. He created this system. It's brilliant. It works. He calls it his golden goose. There's some debate, certainly in the chats that I'm in the Carrot Lane private chat, and certainly my opinion or whatever. He's very much a hands-off type of person on the TokenWorks stuff. What you're seeing is a couple of other ecosystems like Deathstar crop up, and they were building momentum at one point. But do you think that there is you understand it, because you guys were speaking to Good Vibes Club and you launched it kind of at a similar time? I think Good Vibes Club first did it as their native token. Then you guys, because you guys were you were in conversation and there was some clarity around it. I personally believe, in the conversations that I'm having with people, is that there is an information gap on the value of TokenWorks and having a strategy token. Do you think, just as an opinion, and I don't expect you to shoot from the hip or anything like that, but do you think there's anything extra that TokenWorks can do around just kind of getting it out there a little bit more instead of kind of being passive? Do you have any opinions on that?
Of course, it would be nice. I think the ultimate thing, like with Adam, is that what he has created here is, it works regardless of whether or not anybody is there in the future or now, and that is sort of the product. Like it speaks for itself. But of course, like the biggest thing is discoverability, and like educating people about it, even in our own community. I'm sure there's plenty of people that still don't understand what Chimpster is, and obviously that's just with us, you know, hammering it home, you know, every week. So I do think that, yeah, you know,
getting a reallocation. Well, it's money, so I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. It's some people was confused about the whole mechanics of it, and you know, is this a claim or but definitely, I think the more that we can amplify the functionality of it and why it's important to NFTs and you know, the use cases, the more the better. Like everybody should, you know, be able to you know, get access to learning more. So I think with like everything, there's always something more to be done. And yeah, you know, we'll see. Like hopefully,
I think this
they can do
conversation kind of becomes null and void if NFTs go on a bull run, and then all of a sudden the flywheels kick off, and then everyone's like, "Well, fuck, it does its own marketing, whatever." It's just because the price is down. And to be honest, I think like a collector as well. Like I want my assets to go up, so that's how I feel. But I appreciate your input on that. Burge, you've got something to share with us, guys. We're just coming. Bear me 2 seconds. Just for the 153 of you in here, I really appreciate you joining. If you want to listen to the recording, we are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube, but you can also go to carrotlane.com/subscribe. You can get the written version of it as well. There's lots of research that we share there, so make sure you join that. But I obviously really appreciate the folks that have shared. And I just want to say a big shout out to IRA. Yo guys, who's just commented, so I appreciate that. Burge, we've got Burgess bangers, which to be honest, recently there have been actual bangers which have been good. So I'm gonna
just a quick one. I mean, so starting off talking about death strategy, it's been an interesting one actually. I don't know how much me and Jayden Jacob haven't been like, I don't think we've personally got involved, but we've seen it play out over the timeline, and been interesting to see like the reaction from people who were, you know, a lot of the strategy token holders, and I assume are make up most of the people that adopted it or invested in it. And yeah, it's been an interesting one to see on the timeline. I remember seeing, Jane, what we did see was some kind of like an alternative POV from V from World of Women, and saying like, I'm not sure if this is a positive in the space. You know, they've now changed it, Jacob. I don't know if you're aware to, they've now changed it to, it's now 30% less. So it will buy the NFT with the royalties or the treasury that is built up, and then it will relist it for 30% less. And essentially, I don't know, like just create a lot of, you know, I guess the one positive though is that it is creating like activity around the project. Like, you know, there's more people are buying these NFTs where maybe they wouldn't have bought them before because they're seeing them at a discounted price. But it's an interesting one. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. I mean, it's interesting innovation.
Yeah, it is interesting. To be fair, like I haven't been paying close attention. Like I saw the Moonbirds launch, and that I don't think that had like a drastic impact. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people won't like it because everybody, you know, wants the floor price to go up. But then at the same time, like your angle there of, you know, opens up like a new entry point for people who might have been priced out. Like it, you know, like
it's weird, but like if people were on the edge of like maybe getting an NFT, maybe not, it sometimes feels like it's pushing them over into like, oh, go on then, 20% off, I'll buy the NFT and maybe that then leads them to actually get involved in the community, and it's like a net win for the project in a weird way, in a weird backwards kind of way.
I think there's always going to be this is like the countercultural movement. It's like the rebellious thing that people always got to do the opposite of what's happening against the tide. And actually it just speaks perfectly to crypto. Or they did say earlier on in the project that they'll never do this to CryptoPunks.
Yes.
So it's like, and then I know V from World of Women came out and said, well, why, if this is okay to do and morally all right, then why exclude CryptoPunks from the whole thing? And it's like, well, clearly there's a bit of I did like a non-conformist thing that's happening here, but it's cool. It's good. And the beauty of it being open source is you can do things like these, and people just have to accept it. This can be forked. Something else is going to be created. This be a. I know Adam gave his personal opinions on it. He thought it was a good idea. He thought it was, and I think he was just trying to give daps to the project for kind of ripping off his idea, but just doing the inverse of it. Which ironically, Punk's strategy, and I'm going to ask you this, Jacob. Give me your view on them lowering the royalty. So I know they went from 1.2, they dropped it down to 1.1. You know the multiplier?
Yeah, so when they relist, they don't relist for 20% more. They relist now for 10% more, and it almost felt like in retaliation to what Def Strategy is. And then Def Strategy actually changed theirs from, as I said, from 20% less to 30% less as retaliation. That's what it felt like, anyway.
Really, I didn't actually see that. When did they change the relist for that?
It was recently, yeah. See, this is what happens when you're in the trenches, mate, and just working on your thing. You're probably mentally more stable than us in coins and stuff.
To be fair, I'm in the chat, and I must have just completely missed it. But yeah, I think that is interesting. I think one thing about the TokenWorks ecosystem is that there is a lot of barriers like in place that like morally, you know, on the premise of like why it works, like with Punkster and the tax pools and all of these different things that are in place. I believe that it is becoming more flexible. Like obviously Adam there has like updated that and, you know, experimented with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more experimentation like on that. And, you know, even right now with what we're doing with Chimpster, like we're looking to have it as a payment method on our card app so people can transact using Chimpster. And obviously that requires us to do like a few little tweaks here and there. But yeah, like all the contracts are upgradable based on the latest launches. So yeah, it is interesting because there is like a thing within the ecosystem where, you know, people don't want to change the system, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another thing I want you guys to chime in on. So this is Elon announcing that X money is not too far away. It's in early public access. Well, actually, no, I think he's saying early public access is going to launch next month. So I think it's being tested right now. But it's more around just the topic of everything apps. So, you know, obviously Elon has, and he said for a long time, right, he's planning on making X an everything app, a bit like WeChat in China, right? So you see here, you've got X the app, you've got Grok Chat, you've got Grok Search, you've got Grokipedia, where they're trying to, you know, rival Wikipedia, and then you got X Money, where you're able to, I'm assuming you'll be able to send payments peer to peer, which will be a big kind of step for the app. But I think X isn't just the only one that's trying to make something like this. I think there is, I think Meta is looking at stuff like this as well. They are, yeah. I mean, 1 billion users is crazy.
Compare where we were when we used Twitter in 2020. When did Elon take over? 2020 or 2020?
Yeah,
no, he would have taken over in 2021 because I remember being on the app and we had the hexagon thing, and that was actually not that wasn't an
it wasn't an Elon thing.
No, he's the things he's done with this app has been so refreshing, and he's turned it into a profitable company. Twitter's never been profitable, so he's obviously made it into a profitable thing. But I'd be interested to see if he actually uses Dogecoin as the currency.
Yeah, I now tend to think, I don't know, but you know, Elon's such a strange character where he often says, right, like the thing that's most likely to happen is the most entertaining thing. And to be fair, the most entertaining thing would be if he just randomly said, Dogecoin's the coin. Fuck it, Dogecoin's the coin. But from a business point of view, I would have thought it would have been something like X coin, where they make their own coin and token. That would have made more sense.
I don't know if he could do that as a business, mate. I don't know if that's allowed.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Might change stuff. I don't know. He might have some insider info on this Clarity Act.
Yeah, but you're right. 1 billion users, and they've already got like the AI is like already like, I don't know if you guys use Grok, but I definitely use Grok here and there because it's so easy to get to. Like I go onto X and I'm like I go for a there and I go to Grok, and the Grok's just a button away. But if you're then comparing that to competitors like Meta, for example, when I'm on Facebook and Instagram, I don't have a button that I'm going to that plugs me straight into an AI. There's no, it's not seamless like that. So if he's trying to really make an everything app, he's got a lot of the things going already. And obviously they upgraded the chats. I know that was, you know, obviously it's a pro in terms of like encrypting the chats, but I know chats had to be like migrated over, which caused a few issues. It's definitely not like X has been without issues, but they've been progressive in the way that they've been moving constantly with the spaces, the live streams, the payouts for creators was a big thing. And then the upgrading the chats. I don't know, like, would you, like, Jacob, I don't know if you think about it like this, but technically, if they encrypt the chats, if they've encrypted the chats like they are now, technically the X chat right now should be just as safe as something like WhatsApp or Telegram in a way. I mean, maybe Telegram is slightly better, but you know, WhatsApp and X DMs should be the same now in terms of using them. So if people,
should I take that off the screen, Burge?
No. Jake, what? I think you were going to jump in there.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think, yeah, like X is definitely becoming the everything app. Like it's, yeah, like rapidly growing, like in all different areas. And I don't personally use Grok, but especially like in replies, I think that's been like a huge feature for like parsing between like what's real and what's not, you know.
Yes.
So that is obviously like huge, and I think just they're becoming like they're going against like the status quo, like in terms of like news and just the industry.
That's the key thing. That's the key thing. Just to jump in, like I see, like you said, Jacob, I see someone. I have a friend that I follow, and he constantly is like, if it's a post and he's not sure if it's true, he's constantly like, at Grok, is this true? But, like,
what's his name? Like, is it Kowski?
It's Kowski, yeah, it's Kowski.
I knew it was because he does that to me.
But the thing is, it's actually important. It's actually a good thing that you can have that. You can have an AI, as long as you can trust the AI. The AI can verify if it's true or if it's not true, because getting to the truth of what's happening in the world is important, and especially when X is relied upon by so many people as their news app, especially it's like the breaking. If you wanted to know the breaking news on a certain news story, X is easily the best place to go. 100%. And if you can't trust what's on there, then that's going to be a big issue. And obviously with AI coming, or already here, but it's going to keep happening where, you know, you're going to be able to trust less and less and less with deep fakes and whatever. Being able to verify it with an AI is important. So it's another thing that it's another tool it's another feather in the kind of bow of the app. I think everything apps are going to be a big thing. I do think X is going to get competition, but I think X is definitely pulling away. And then just a few other quick ones. Rect have partnered with Moonbirds to release like a special variation of the drink.
Awesome.
And along with it, they have like points, I think, and you get a TCG, a Vibes TCG card. Then you got Binance suing Wall Street Journal for defamation. Big Binance that they're somehow trying to make a comeback, and they're suing Wall Street Journal. Then you've got the story again, kind of touching on AI. We saw vibe coding become a thing in other side. You've also got this thing here talking about Doodles AI. I'm not sure too much about. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into what Doodles is really doing as of recently, but they're launching something here, Doodles AI, Doodles Verse. I haven't seen anything around Doodles Verse, but if it's something like Pudgy's World, which Jacob mentioned earlier, maybe it's something similar to what other side announced. And then here's just an interesting one to end on. Wells Fargo coming out and filing a trademark for a potential ticker of WFUSD, potentially launching their own stablecoin. And I think what we're going to see happen with this Clarity Act is a big shakeup in the crypto world. I'm predicting a lot of changes and a lot of new things being announced. And I'm predicting stablecoins to be a big battleground for control. These banks aren't going to go down without a fight. And if the crypto bill if they're being pressured to make a deal and to push this crypto bill through, I don't think these banks are going to want to not be exposed to the crypto world. If the crypto world is being pushed through as like the future, these banks are going to want a piece of that. And so this is just an example of like, a bank trying to get involved with crypto.
Yeah, nice one, Burge. Absolute banger, my friend. We're just coming to the end now, guys. Obviously, there's 172 in here. I appreciate you listening so far. Obviously, it's great to have Jacob on. We've got a question from Alexander. He said, this is to Jacob. He said, you mentioned Frankie as collection that's doing good. I thought you could share some insights. Have you got any insights on that? Is that Nibbles?
Yeah, that's right.
Any insights on him as a founder or on the project?
Yeah, definitely. I've known Maha for a while, like a couple of years now. And they have a project called Frankie the Frog, and they built a mobile game, which was, on Abstract. It was really awesome. Like, they integrated skins of different communities, and it was one of the really well-polished mobile games that is really great. And they've been building in the space for a couple of years now, like being actively involved in communities and spaces, and just in general, just like a really good team. And they've launched this collection now as their sort of flagship community. And like I said to Burge at the start, I think it's really great when collections are launched by people who have been in the space and have earned their stripes and are reputable and want to do the best for the community. And I think that's what they set out on doing. And a lot of Chimpers holders have been getting their nibbles. Like, we had spots for our community, and it's just I've seen other communities getting involved. They have some really cool things cooking. So that's generally as much as I know. But Maha is just such a relentless builder, a bit like myself. Like, he is all over the place. He's taking calls with people in DMs, just always trying to like improve. So they've got a really good team. Sorry,
where is he or she based?
I believe they're in the US, somewhere. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah.
Right. So I guess that explains obviously because I think there were a bunch of V-friends that got mint. Did they get a mint?
Right. Yeah, I think I saw
that. So we've had a GM from Dimcat. Thanks for joining, my friend. We've just come to the end here. Folks, just to the 182 of you, I really appreciate you joining. I know that a whole bunch of you want to get the live stream on catch up. You can do that at carrotlane.com/subscribe. Pop your email address in and you'll get all of this content into your inbox. Alternatively, you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But we're live every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I'm just going to let Burgie just dive in here while we're closing.
Just wanted to showcase this because I know Jacob talked about it earlier. The hub that you guys are working on. This looks really clean. So I really like what you're doing here. You're kind of like you got their holdings. I guess this collector here has 44 NFTs, which contribute to their like overall kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, level or rank or whatever. They're deemed like a master level or master rank. Then you got the Chimpster there with the little like the little kind of graph and how much Chimpster they're holding. And so you kind of like gamifying a little bit around the collectability of the whole project. And obviously it's not just owning the NFTs and owning the strategy token, but there's some other stuff as well. You know, you've got the legacy, like the digital cards as well that you've got in there. So I don't know, it just looks really clean. I just want to give you some props because it looks really, really sick. Will be cool to see that.
Yeah, we're pretty close. We're pretty close, and that's just like a small snapshot of like the portfolio section. And within that, there'll be like the homepage with all the latest news, where we can spotlight, you know, our socials, like brand collaborations, even like community members, and also there'll be a story hub section. So like that'll link out to like the Chimpers like universe and the world, and there's a whole lot going on that side. Like we're creating backstories for all 5,555 Chimpers. We even have like an ancient chronicles story that is like the foundation of our world, which we'll be bringing back to life, and you know, different areas of the Chimpers world, factions, and all sorts of fun things that all lives in this collector hub. And I think it's just great because for a lot of projects and for like ourselves, like things are fragmented all over the place, whereas with this, it's like one universal hub where we can, you know, spotlight the community, reward participation, encourage collecting, and also just bring a spotlight on the NFTs themselves and the, you know, the special nature of the traits and why they should be valuable and collectible, and you know, all of the latest news and happenings, and of course the story that underpins the whole universe.
It's a much better place to go than like a Discord, right? Like Discord is great, but like it's not as that looked way better than a Discord channel where you're like you have to go through all the individual channels to know like the up to date on, you know, Chimpster, or you know, like this makes sense, makes so much sense. And I've seen it, we've already seen it somewhat with, you know, Good Vibes Club and the success they've had with that website as well. So I think it's a great place to get it out there. And as you said, have like a story section as well, so you can kind of like just naturally give some exposure to the stories and, you know, kind of push them in front of people's eyes, because sometimes that can be a hard thing to get people to, you know, consume. But if you have it as like just a tab off to the side, it's an easy button, it's an easy one to push to them.
Yeah, like definitely. We're excited for it. Like there's, like you say, Good Vibes, Cleanosaurs, like Zuki, all have great collector ecosystems and like hubs for being able to explore. So yeah, it was overdue for us, and we're excited because it's just really awesome.
Looking good. Can Jacob, can you give any sneak like is there a date in mind yet, or is it still a little bit of a way away?
So on the weekend, we launched our legacy cards, which is like like you saw on that little snapshot there, like the left-hand corner of the card, as well. But that was like the first step towards it. I think we'll be launching the collector hub like late March or early April. It would be great if we could do late March, but we're still working through all the art, lots of assets.
You want to make sure, you want to make sure everything's done and ready to go.
Yeah.
Lovely.
But yeah, hopefully very soon.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Chaps, this has been a very enjoyable one. I know I shouldn't say that while Simon is actually listening from wherever he is in the world. But happy birthday to Simon. I was going to suggest we all sing happy birthday, but we'd probably get cancelled. No, I'm only joking. Jacob, firstly, just to say a massive thank you for joining us. Burge, brilliant coverage and depth into the NFT ecosystem, bud. Where can people follow you, Jacob, and where can they find your project?
Yeah, follow Chimpers HQ on X, and then myself, NFT Insight, but with a 1. But yeah, you know, find Chimpers on X, join our Discord, discord.gg/Chimpers. And yeah, you know, if you have any questions, just reach out. Always happy to chat about Chimpers or in general, you know, anything that, you know, anybody needs help with.
Love that. Chaps, this has been an enjoyable one. Jacob, once we come off of here, we'll just stay on the live, all right? But Chaps, really appreciate you joining, and Burge, brilliant bangers, my friend. Guys, until next week, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, we'll join you live. Appreciate you joining. You can get the recording on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and carrotlag.com. See you later.
Thank you, Jacob. Take care.
Thank you.